Focus is still on Africa, where the government of South Sudan has denied reports earlier indicating that Uganda had deployed special forces to its capital, Juba. Uganda's military chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, says the soldiers had gone to the neighboring country to help the South Sudanese President Salva Kiir secure the city. The statement came amid escalating tension between President Kiir and his deputy, Riek Machar, raising fears that their fragile peace deal could collapse and the conflict could resume. The spokesperson for Uganda's army, Felix Kulayigye, confirmed the deployment of troops to the BBC yesterday, but did not reveal details. Speaking to journalists later, South Sudan's Information Minister Michael Makui said Ugandan troops were not in Juba. The U.S. ordered the evacuation of all its non-emergency staff from the country. Well, let's now get more reaction to this. For analysis of the conflict in South Sudan, Senior Special Assistant to Nigeria's President on Foreign Affairs, Ademola Oshodi, joins me right here in the studio. Good to have you here this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so let's begin by getting your reaction to this conflicting position, being held by Uganda and South Sudan about the deployment of Ugandan troops to Juba, the capital. Is there something wrong with seeking security reinforcement from neighboring countries?
It is wrong if they're not there as a mutual party. I would say a very independent party and looking for the general well-being of the South Sudan people. So basically, if they're there for peace and to ensure that everybody, human rights and equity is all respected, then fine. But this is the third intervention or invitation, I should say, of the Ugandan forces into South Sudan. It's happened in 2013, 2016, now again 2025. Each time the president here has issues with his rival, Machar, he invites the Ugandan special forces for protection. And they keep him in power and provide some sort of stability to his government. But is it sustainable? We need the African Union to step in and ensure there's a lasting peace in that country. The country is the youngest country in Africa, and they've had this strife for majority of their existence. It's always war. They had war before with Sudan. Now they have their own civil war that's been on and off for a good amount of their existence. So we need the African Union to step in to ensure that peace is lasting. It puts in question the purpose of African Union and the ability to provide stability in the continent.
A real issue it is really. But why exactly has the AU not been able to fix the challenge in South Sudan?
I think it's a combination of things. First of all, it's the regional actors. You have Uganda intervening. You have Sudan, the former part of the country, intervening. You have even countries, like Kenya in certain respect. So it's that regional body, especially economic community of East Africa, intervening, and many times it's not for their own interest. They say it's national security, but national security can be very selfish in some ways. So they need that regional body to intervene and to be very purposeful in providing peace. And secondly, African Union must take a very firm step. Right now, the West don't really have much interest in Africa with the new American administration. So it's important that we take hold of things, whether it's in East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa. We need to take hold of things and hold people accountable to ensure peace is lasting.
All right, and just over the weekend, the U.S. ordered the evacuation of all its non-emergency staff from South Sudan. I wonder what message you think this is passing across and the impact it's going to have on the fragile peace being experienced in that country.
Well, Americans are very nervous about their people anyway. In any situation, there's always some alert or the other. But it is shown over the years that once those two major players have conflict, the president and the vice president, they have 5 vice presidents, but this particular one, Machar, has issues with the president since inception. So it's a history of conflict whenever there's these two actors have a disagreement. So the Americans, have a right to be concerned as any other national in that country. But Americans will not push their weight as they were before. There's even conflict in Sudan upstairs, and there's, American intervention, American, resolution has been wanted. So it's up to African Union. It's up to leaders in Africa to push. Nigeria has the head of the political and peace committee in the African Union. We should speak with our ambassador there to ensure that we, take a bolder role in trying to get both parties together and stop any potential conflict that may happen. And it's very scary because we have conflict in Sudan, the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world right now. And there's, of course, there's crisis in Congo, DRC, so we don't want another major upheaval in Southern Sudan.
Indeed. And, considering your position, I'm wondering if you think that, if you're considering really maybe giving advice to the federal government at this time to maybe evacuate any Nigerian, if there's anyone at all, within that country. Has it gotten to that level? I
think everybody should be, anybody residing in Sudan, whether it's Nigerian, American, or even Sudanese, Southern Sudan should be very, very keenly aware of the situation, and things could really boil up at any time. So it's really there, and I'm pretty sure the Nigerian government, with its, with its emissaries and diplomatic community around there, will be ensuring that the Nigerian safety is, Nigerians in that area are safe. So, but how often do we need to go through that? There has to be a lasting solution that will ensure that we don't have to go through this, and Africa is in a better, peaceful and developed continent.
So, as you recommended, you hope the African Union would step up and step into the situation,
and the regional body, the East African Economic Community. They need to do more. It's very important that all parties are involved. The West, they don't have much interest, as you've seen with the U.S. administration. And the Europeans are more concerned about migration across the Mediterranean. So it's really up to us, and we need to bring this problem to a good resolution as soon as possible.
All right. Yeah. And, of course, talking about relations, how do we improve relations? You've just spoken about the fact that it's like some back and forth, between the president and his vice, and whenever this happens, there's just a big crisis at hand. Is this about some personality issues coming up, sentiments? What exactly is it?
Power is always personal. Everybody wants their own piece of the pie and their own, in many ways, the interest of the ethnic group. The president is from Dinka, a Dinka ethnic group. The vice president is Nura, in another large South Sudan ethnic group. So they have to push the interest of their own ethnic group, but in the same time, they're also looking for power. And they feel in many ways that their own legitimacy should be the one that should be recognized, whether through their people, whether through the national government. But when you have foreign players like Uganda, you have Sudan, and even though Sudan is in crisis itself, and you have other players actually putting in and ensuring that their own interest is also there on the old cover of national security, then we have a problem. And that's what we've seen prevalent across the continent of Africa. Another thing I will need to stress here is that not too far from South Sudan is Somalia. Somalia is finally resolving their problems. They're dealing with the issues of Al-Shabaab and everything. It's been decades since Somalia has had crisis. But Somalia is finding their own feet now. So it's time for South Sudan to step up and do the right thing and ensure, with the backing of major African players and the African Union, to ensure that we bring lasting peace there. There's not been an election there since 2011. That itself will bring confidence to the people when there's an election. There's more legitimacy, but the conditions are not right. They're fighting, there are people in refugee camps, and there's also this international actors, like you said, the Ugandans.
All right.
Yes.
Right then. Senior Special Assistant to Nigeria's President.